Pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Mrs. Klein.
And Mr. Creighton.
And we are here with your first podcast for our unit on the Reformation. First section is called, in this podcast, is called Protests Against the Catholic Church. I want for you to be thinking about things that we learned about in the last unit. So thanks to Gutenberg's new printing press, the printers quickly finished making copy of the pamphlet that a customer brought in. But they're a bit nervous about its contents. The pamphlet, by Martin Luther, contains a list of items criticizing the church. The printers are used to seeing old ideas challenged, but this list seems to go too far.
All right, guys, we've got some terms that you guys need to know. The first is Great Schism, indulgences, Martin Luther, Protestants, Reformation, and denominations. Now remember, you guys are going to have a vocab podcast quiz coming up soon, and when you hear this sound, it means you've just heard a vocab word. Our big idea for our unit is throughout history, people have challenged the status quo for a variety of reasons. And the first essential question, at what point do people begin to speak out against authority?
Next question, how do events, religious conflicts specifically in this lesson, divide societies?
The third, why do people or groups of people challenge the status quo?
And finally, the fourth one to consider is how do people respond to criticism? All right, main idea also for you to think about in this is in the 1500s, Martin Luther's protests against the Roman Catholic Church led to something that's called the Reformation. Be thinking of this as you're listening to the podcast. What church practices did Martin Luther protest against? Okay, as you know, some people had begun to criticize the church and call for reforms during the Renaissance. In the last chapter, we also learned that the church became weaker as the authority of kings increased. In 1305, a powerful French king moved the center of the church from Rome to Avignon in France and appointed a French pope. Following a struggle for power, two popes were elected in 1378, one in Rome and the other in Avignon. This split in the church is known as the Great Schism. Schism means split. Although the church was unified once again in 1417 and Rome restored as the center of Christianity, the church had been weakened even further.
The church needed money to regain its former strength, but some people believed the church used questionable practices to obtain it. For example, church officials sold indulgences, which relaxed the punishment for a sin. However, sometimes the officials sold an indulgence as forgiveness for a sin, with no punishment imposed. Many people, though, believe that only God could forgive sins. People also objected to paying 1/10 of their income to the church every year in taxes.
Okay, what if you're poor and you have no money to buy those indulgences?
Yeah.
That's got to be something that really starts to aggravate people.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. A German monk named Martin Luther actively protested against these practices. On October 31st, 1517, Luther nailed a list of protests known as the 95 Theses to a church door in Wittenberg, Germany. The list included the idea that the Bible was the only source of religious truth and that priests were not needed to interpret its words. Luther further suggested that salvation came through faith in Christ alone. Those who supported Luther's ideas would later be called Protestants, which comes from the word protest. The reform movement Luther began is known as the Reformation.
Protestantism grows. After Luther made the 95 Theses public, Pope Leo X demanded that the monk take back his statements. Luther refused and was excommunicated or cut off from the church. Nevertheless, pamphlets containing Luther's theses were soon printed, and his ideas spread rapidly. In response, peasants throughout Europe used Luther's teachings to stage revolts for better wages and living conditions.
And you guys remember one of those words that we had in our last unit, vernacular? These pamphlets are written in the vernacular. So if you're in France and you're getting one of these, it's written in French. If you're in Germany, it's written in German. All right. So Luther's teachings also had a great impact on Christianity. As people interpreted the Bible for themselves, their differing beliefs led to the development of many branches or denominations of Protestant religions. One branch called Lutheranism was inspired by Luther's teachings. Another, called Calvinism, was led by a French reformer named John Calvin, who believed that God chose people for salvation. They could do nothing to earn it. A third branch called Anglicanism, or the Church of England, was begun in England by King Henry VIII. Protestantism would have a lasting impact on Europe. Okay, King Henry VIII of England, you guys, formed a new branch of Protestantism when the church refused to grant him a divorce. He wanted to get married to another lady because everybody else that he'd been married to couldn't give him a son, and he wanted to have a male heir. And the Catholic Church said, sorry, dude, we're not going to let you get a divorce. So he wanted to divorce and marry a woman he hoped would give him a son. Okay, but in the meantime, when all this is going down, the Catholic Church began to look for ways to stop its spread.
The question you guys should be thinking about: why did many branches of Protestantism develop? All right, our review for the vocab quiz or podcast quiz: Great Schism, indulgences, Martin Luther, Protestants, Reformation, and denominations. You forgot, didn't you?
Make me proud on that podcast quiz tomorrow.